Hey, howdy. And how are you, Charlie's Fanatics? I'll have to make this short and sweet due to how busy we've been lately. I haven't had much time to do anything but worry about everything going on. So, this part of the Charlie's Chronicles will be tidbits and memories I never included in previous parts. I will give you the gist of current events happening behind the scenes, though. We have a new pet. The Wizard was shockingly right. And Charlie's has a new owner. I hope you enjoy these, I guess we'll call them bloopers, and we'll see you soon. This occurred during the last entry's time period, but I forgot to include it, so here you go, guys. Since reopening, the store had become an absolute mess, and everyone had their hands full with maintaining customer satisfaction and store upkeep. We were all doing things not normally on our roster, and this is why I found myself sweeping the front of the store after the lunch rush hour. A strange slapping noise took my attention away from the task at hand. I looked all around me to find the source, and it grew louder and louder until a fuzzy, white being stood at my feet. Quack! It roared ferociously.
I think my duck has taken a liking to your store,
spoke up someone behind me. I looked towards the voice to find the kleptomaniac wizard decked in a green and red cloak. Jingle bells, ornaments, and Christmas lights wrapped around his pointy evergreen hat, resembling a 3-foot Christmas tree. Practically 2 packs of bobby pins lined the hat's brim. Not everything could be accomplished with magic, I guess. Quack, quack, agreed the duck. He wore a green and red striped sweater with a grinning Rudolph on the front, and a red blinking LED light where his nose was. What's the little guy's name? I asked. 2 seconds later, I received a slap so powerful it knocked my head to the right. All I saw beforehand was a blur of white, red, and green. I'm almost positive that if I had looked into a mirror, I would have seen a tiny, webbed foot-shaped welt on my cheek.
His name is Mr. Quacksworth,
responded the wizard as he laughed.
And he doesn't like to be underestimated.
I see, I said while rubbing my sore cheek. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Quacksworth. Quack, he said before giving me a tiny bow. Wow, he knows tricks, I said. That's cool.
Yes, he knows many tricks.
I was confused by the way he responded, but I ignored it. What are some of the other tricks he knows?
Oh, the usuals,
he started before beginning to count them off on his fingers.
Sit, roll over, play dead, world domination.
Oh, I said, even more confused.
Jiu-jitsu, knife throwing, acrobatics, necromancy, he continued. He can also cook a steak so good it would give Hordaunt Gampsey a run for his money.
Hordaunt Gampsey?
The best wizard chef there ever was, he explained. But my duck is better because he is the amazing Mr. Quacksworth.
Suddenly, a loud bang sounded from in front of us, and Mr. Quacksworth fell dead. The wizard immediately fell to his knees beside his furry friend, crying out in agony. The intrusive thought of the fact that I would now have to not only sweep, but also mop up blood entered my head. Sometimes it's hard to show emotion when the antics never end. 2 men, decked out in camo, eagerly ran through the sliding glass doors, hooting and hollering over their fresh kill.
"Who we gonna have duck for Christmas dinner, Mikey?"
screamed one as he attempted to snatch it up, but the wizard slapped his hand away.
"What in the gods is wrong with you? How could you kill him?"
The wizard was a blubbering mess as he held on to the duck's corpse. "Well, shucks, buddy," said Mikey. "Didn't know you and the ducks was in cahoots. We just wanted a good dinner."
"Cahoots? You nincompoops!"
He released a roar that shook the store, causing a few customers to stop in their tracks and look around in panic. However, background characters have short attention spans, so they resumed normal shopping a moment later. The wizard dramatically whipped a hand out of the folds of his robe, aimed it at the 2 hunters, and yelled,
"One to heal, one to reanimate. Take these poor fools' souls and leave them without a plate."
Both men began to levitate, as white wisps lifted from their gaping mouths. They began to waste away, rapidly becoming frailer and frailer. Their eyes popped out of their heads and landed with a wet plop on the floor, leaving black holes where their eyes should have been. Their bodies shriveled to skeletons before they were released, and their bones clacked together as they dropped to the floor. With a simple flick of the wrist, the white wisp soared into the duck's tiny body. Mr. Quacksworth coughed violently, his feathered body convulsing before he sprung upright. Without skipping a beat, the wizard picked up his furry little buddy and gave him a delicate hug, before smiling at me happily. Later, during my lunch break, I texted the group chat. So, the wizard stole some customer's souls earlier? I think it might be time for an intervention. That's probably the weirdest thing I've ever sent in our group chat. Actually, scratch that. It probably isn't. Gotta love Charlie's. Case number 987365. Project Level Infinity. Version 432B. File justification. Redacted. Register 1 is open now if anyone wants to come over here. 3 customers shuffled over from Cheryl's extended line with their merchandise, and all 3 had a shopping cart. I was surprised to see the man with the least amount of products in his buggy waving to the other 2 to go first. Only a quarter of his buggy was full, but I just assumed he was being a good Samaritan and kept it trucking. When it was his turn, I saw his cart only contained 20 items, which I guesstimated would take 5 minutes to check out usually. Yet, I was perplexed to find myself still checking him out 30 minutes later. Yet his buggy still looked just as full as when I had started. I had nearly convinced myself that Acid Dude had somehow drugged me without me realizing, when the man mumbled, "It's happening again, isn't it?" I looked up from my conveyor belt to see his face look more frantic than mine. The look on my face confirmed his suspicions, and he quickly shut down. His fingers went to his hair, tugging on it as he sank to a sitting position on the ground. "Sir?" I said, trying to sound calm, yet failing. He began muttering to himself as his eyes grew wider. I heard bits and pieces of the mutterings, mostly including the words, "stuck in a time loop," and, "Oh God, why?" "Sir?" I repeated to no avail. His words were actually starting to scare me. What the hell does he mean, stuck in a time loop? I walked around my conveyor belt to aid him, but he rapidly scooted away from my presence. He slid the rest of the way down the aisle as I struggled to shove my hand into his now overflowing buggy. I tried to find the bottom as the products waterfalled over the edge, but it had simply disappeared. And then, I realized the products weren't even real. They were prop boxes with logos written in gibberish that somewhat resembled English but wasn't. Most of the boxes couldn't even open, and the ones that did either contained nothing or something that very clearly wasn't the item it was meant to contain. Time loop? I muttered to myself finally. It dawned on me to look around us, and I saw that every person, place, and thing had paused. In fact, every being in the room was staring at us with wide, sunken eyes. The man's screams tore my attention away from our audience, and I followed his gaze to see 3 lab coat-donned men marching through the front doors. His screams echoed through the store as they began to drag him toward the exit. His attempt to find traction on the linoleum floor only led to bloodshed and a loss of fingernails. All I could do was stare in frozen horror and confusion.
"Help me!"
he screeched as he stared at me, but I still found moving impossible.
"Is this hell?"
were his last words before finally leaving. Mere moments later, everything and everyone unpaused, resuming their previous actions as if nothing abnormal had happened. And really, to them, it hadn't. I stood there staring at my conveyor belt, trying to process the situation. However, my brain felt like jello. Had anything happened? Was that man really in a time loop? Was he in his own personal hell? Who were those men? Wait, what men? I raised my eyes from the conveyor belt, shaking my head to try and clear the fog thickening within it. What had I just been doing?
"Jared, you're needed in the back room,"
said Lacey over the radio, stealing my thoughts away.
"Jared, you're needed in the back room."
What had I just been so worried about? I shrugged and headed towards the back room. I figured it would return to me later if it was truly important. So I helped Lacey with 2 shopping carts filled with broken items we needed to label in the system as claims. It was a rather tedious process, but we did it quickly. I just didn't get where all the broken items came from. Some of their labels didn't even seem to be in English. It resembled English, but it definitely wasn't. Anyways, when I got back up front, I headed to Register 1 to help Cheryl with the sudden rush. 3 customers shuffled over when I announced my register was open, and I was surprised to see the man with the least amount of products in his buggy waving to the other 2 to go first. Continued on page 4584. Results not yet determined. Project still in progress. The crackling through the store intercom speakers had been going on for 10 minutes, and it was giving me a headache. It also made the customers give me dirty looks like I had just run over their dog or something. I couldn't find where the sound was coming from, though. All the microphones had been checked, and all seemed fine. Upon my 3rd check of the intercom of the clothing department service desk, I noticed a slender porcelain arm draped over the counter's edge. As it was raised, the tip of the porcelain arm's pointer finger just barely met the height of the microphone's button. The finger held down the button for a few seconds before letting go and repeating the process. The microphone rustled around in its stand, creating that god-awful crackling noise. I approached the desk slowly, regarding it quizzically. As I rounded the corner, the hand dropped from the button. It also dropped off its owner's body completely, but she didn't seem to mind. "Oh, thank goodness," said the noisemaker. As I often do in new Charlie situations that I'm unsure how to navigate, I made a crappy joke to mask my surprise. "You're supposed to drop the mic, not your hand." The all-white figure released a sigh. Can you just help me up already? My body is too slick to get a grip on the floor." "That would be because you're a mannequin, and you're not supposed to move. You try living with a metal pole shoved up your butt and see if you like it." I held up my hands. "Don't get me wrong, you have a point, but I also don't make the rules." "You literally do," she said, attempting to stand up by herself and failing again. "That's what you wrote in the last entry, at least." "You don't have eyes, but you can read my posts?" "Ever heard of YouTube narrations?" I shook my head, so she flung the other hand at me. "I have ears. How else would I be hearing your blubbering right now? Now help me up." "Say please," I ordered. She groaned. "Please," she said through gritted teeth she clearly did not have. After I helped her up, she brushed her dress off rather dramatically, even though she had nothing on it. I picked up her hands off the floor and handed them to her. Although she had no facial features beside the soft indentation of eyelids and a mouth slit, I could picture the look on her face that read, "Really?" I apologized for my blonde moment before reattaching her right hand. "Thanks," she said, before sliding the other back into position. They made thick clicking noises that were rather satisfying when inserted once more. Once both were reinserted, she quickly clapped her hands together to the best of her ability. That was not a satisfying noise. "Well, I'll be going. I've got a party to attend." "A party?" "Yeah, the clothing store next door is going out of business, so we decided to have a little fun. You know, with everyone slowly losing their outfits as the store gets sold out." I paused for a moment as my mind began to wander. "A little fun?" I finally asked. Her brow bone slightly lowered, as if she were glaring at me. "Oh, don't be a creep. We're going to have a fashion show. Normally we do them every Tuesday, but this will sadly be our last one. Plus, I want to know how Manny and the Lady of the Fountain from the mall are doing. I heard their relationship was becoming a little frigid, and I'm in the market for a stone-cold fox." She giggled at her joke before saluting me. The salute caused her hand to almost fly off again, but she caught it and then wobbled off towards the entrance of the store. "Well, that's another thing to check off the Charlie's bucket list," I said to myself. The idea of a bucket list sounded amusing, but I feel like it would quickly become infinite. Anything could happen in this place, and I had to stay on my toes. I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Charlie's Yelp reviews. Magical Dan, 42. The blue-haired fellow was very helpful and entertaining. I watched him try to teach the commodes how to willy-wop for 30 minutes. Very insightful, and we will return. Deborah Demon Lady. Absolutely horrific service. There was no WD-40 in stock, and whenever I tried to ask for help, the workers would run away screaming. I will be back to torment them. Cheryl loves Snickers. I love you guys. Can't believe I work with my absolute besties. Also, I got your hemorrhoid cream, Jared. Wait, this isn't the group chat. Siri, delete the message. Siri, delete message. Arnold Swanson, 86. The rubber ducks are absolutely delectable. Live, love, laugh, whine. Haha. I will not be coming back. Ever. Only 2 of the 8 registers were open. The bathrooms were covered in blood, and some freaky-looking dog kept whistling at me. Plus, a priest came up to me and asked if he could exorcise my demons. How rude. I need those. Space Donkey Ninja. 4 out of 5. Would give 5, but there weren't enough snakes wearing cowboy hats. Place gets a 4 because the dude with the blue hair is the one who helped me see them. Kinda disappointed they didn't come home with me. Marty Reviews. I've heard wonderful things about Charlie's Deli, so I decided to come and check it out for myself. Gary, the butcher and chef, is an incredibly lovable guy, but you'll love his food even more than him. Not only does he have a wide and exotic variety of fresh meats, but his already prepared food is also delightful. Whether it's his sushi surprise, or freshly ground hamburgers made with meat so rare I've never even heard of it. It's made of long pig, but he swears it's not pork. You'll be in for a tasty treat. Aspiring Jillian, 07. I know this will sound crazy, but this place is a portal to hell. No one wants to believe me, but I have proof. Charlie's is an anagram for the name of a demon that's spelled Hlyarak. He has been around for centuries and is referenced in several ancient tomes I've studied extensively. I've even had the demon himself contact me and order me to stop researching this. I'm not scared of you, demon. Plus, how have you guys never noticed the worker named Chip, who never blinks or breathes? He literally carries a garden gnome with him everywhere he goes. See more. Even when we were a smaller store with a less extensive catalog, we always had a large toy selection. Whether you were looking for a Barbie or a Holly hatchet, complete with her latest Butcher Shop playset, we've got it. We also have the new Operation game that comes with a real cadaver. The use of a cadaver is actually rather important in this entry, and I'll tell you why. Usually, after the lunch rush, I'll grab a shopping cart or 2 and make a lap around the store, filling them up with items that customers hastily discarded in places they don't belong. I was in the middle of returning said items to their proper places when I spotted what I could only describe as a ritual of some sort. After pulling my buggy over to the right side of the aisle, I walked over to the puncture party. Hey, Cher. She glanced up at me from her position on the floor. Neon rainbow jump ropes bound her hands and feet, yet she had a bright and oblivious smile on her face. The 2 girls accompanying her ignored me. Hi. What you doing on the floor? She wiggled her bound feet excitedly. Girls asked me to play Operation with them. Mm-hmm, I said, looking over at the girls as they prepped their surgical equipment. I looked back at Cheryl, who still maintained her kid in the candy store smile. And did they ask you to play with them forever? The children's heads jerked upwards so swiftly that I heard their necks crack. Their eyes flashed back and forth between Cheryl and me as we talked. Yes, but I told them I could only play during my lunch break. I nodded. That would explain why they're already trying to kill you. Kill me? Asked Cheryl as concern spread across her face. I could feel the twins glaring at me, practically burning a hole through my skull. Paranoia got the best of me, and I even felt the back of my head to ensure there wasn't a hole. I played it off as if I was scratching an itch, though. The kids love to intimidate, but I wouldn't let the twerps get the satisfaction. I kept my eyes trained on Cheryl. Yeah, this game normally comes with a cadaver, and they're trying to make you theirs. Confusion took control of Cheryl's emotions, more than likely a comfortable feeling for her. They're gonna turn me into fish eggs? I immediately facepalmed and released a sigh. No, Cher. Cadaver, not caviar. A cadaver is a dead body. Her eyes widened as the alarm returned. Man, it must be interesting inside her head. The girls both stood up simultaneously, as their prey had her revelation. However, their ominous glare stayed on me even as Cheryl began to squirm in her restraints and scream for them to free her. In one fluid movement, they both launched their scalpels at me. I flung my body backwards, making my back parallel with the floor as their weapons soared over me. They landed in a display of baby dolls behind me, and unleashed a chorus of motion-censored baby cries. "Jared!" shouted Cheryl as she struggled against the jump ropes. As the girls walked toward us, I chucked whatever toys I could reach to deter them. Most were avoided until I threw an entire box of squishy stress balls at them. The rubber rainbow made the perfect tripping hazard, and one actually landed a hit on the right one's forehead. The frustrated look spread across her porcelain face, almost as fast as the red mark where I hit her. Then they both fell to the floor. Rather dramatically, I might add. I quickly dragged Cheryl out of the aisle by her jump ropes. I whipped my phone out of my pocket before making a left. After I dialed her number, Lacey picked up in just 2 rings. I moved briskly as I talked to her, ignoring my nervousness at sounding out of breath. "Where are you?" I asked. At the same time, she said, "Hey." Produce," she responded. "Why? What's wrong?" I ignored her questions. "We'll be there in a second." I hung up and hightailed it to the produce department while ignoring Cheryl's complaints about being dragged along. Lacey looked confused when we approached her, but a loud rumbling noise took center stage before I could explain. I dragged Cheryl behind the Apple display and motioned for Lacey to duck down with me. "Untie me!" yelled Cheryl, and I shushed her with a finger over her mouth. Lacey and I peeked over the display and saw the twins riding down the main aisle side by side on 2 red tricycles. "When did we start selling tricycles?" asked Lacey. "We don't," I said. "It's just the writer trying to avoid copyright infringement." Lacey squinted at me. "But they weren't even the ones riding." A flash of fear entered her eyes as she looked toward what I'm assuming was one of the security cameras. "Never mind." They continued driving, glancing in all directions to look for us. When their search didn't turn out, they began to turn around. However, when Lacey untied Cheryl, she stupidly hopped right up, alerting our hunters of where their prey was. They quickly did a U-turn on their bikes, ringing their bells threateningly with devilish smirks. "What the hell, Cheryl?" snapped Lacey. Cheryl's mouth fell open as she struggled to respond. "I'm sorry, Lacey."
Yahoo!
Our heads whipped around to find Chip Jr. ramping a partially empty base shelf. And you want to know how he's doing that? I forgot to mention that one of Gary's unemployment projects was to upgrade a hot pink Barbie car for Chip Jr. Not only did he add a weed eater motor to it, but he added tires from a go-kart and covered it in pink Swarovski crystals. 2 silver plaques garnished each side of the sparkly creation, with Barbie Beast engraved in both. And now, Chip Jr. was on a mission to make the twins' faces a Barbie Beast racetrack. However, before his enlarged tires could land on their faces, the twins leaped from their rides, wide-eyed and terrified. It didn't take long for him to be right on their tails. He shouted something about his Mama Cheryl and why not to mess with her, before bursting into high-pitched maniacal laughter. Meanwhile, all 3 of us stood rather flabbergasted behind the display. As we watched the twins get mowed down, Lacey and Cheryl's mouths hung open in shock. Their jaws extended once more as they saw Chip run over their bodies not once, not twice, but thrice until they were unconscious. He then hopped out of the vehicle, tied them to the plastic trailer hitch, using the same type of jump rope they had tied Cheryl up with, and then dragged them toward the back of the store with a honk signaling his goodbye. After a few moments of silence, Lacey asked, "What do you think he's going to do with them?"
Hey!
All 3 of us looked toward whoever had yelled at us to find the same college-age girl the twins had last kidnapped. However, she looked much older than she had when I first saw her. Living with murderous children will do that to you, I guess. "Gotta be kidding me," I said in shock. She quickly approached us, her eyes flashing back and forth from us to where Chip had headed with the twins. A smile of delight was gradually growing on her face. Are they really gone? Yes? She clapped her hands to her mouth as her eyes began to water. She began to wave at her face to stop the waterworks. I looked away for 2 seconds to park the car, and when I looked back, they were gone. She broke into hysterical sobbing. Cheryl began to rub her shoulder. It's okay. Maybe Chip Jr. won't kill them. Her words were cut off as the college girl got in her face, stabbing the air in front of Cheryl's nose with her pointer finger. Make sure he does, she ordered. And with that, she marched out the door, triumphantly clicking her heels together before leaving our line of sight. I've never really talked about it in the previous Charlie's posts, but before the current communication setup with our new radio sets, we used our cell phones to relay messages we couldn't say over the intercom. We also have a group chat where we all regularly communicate and send funny pictures to each other. Now, tell me why Lacey sent a blurry picture of rice and beans splayed across the floor, and why they looked like they were standing. Don't actually answer that. It's a rhetorical question. Clearly, this situation was rather bizarre, but definitely serious enough for a phone call to be made. Before I could call, though, I pulled my buzzing cell phone out of my pocket and found Lacey's grinning contact photo staring at me. By the tone in her voice, I could tell there was not a similar grin on her face currently as she explained the situation. She was spewing everything out too fast, though, and I could barely understand her. All I heard was the word hostage, which did put me on high alert. It's the beans. The beans and the rice. My face contorted in confusion. What the hell are you talking about? And what the hell was that picture? The beans and rice have taken Cheryl hostage, and they say she's a war criminal. I took a moment to respond as I tried to process the situation. Did you get something from Acid Dude? I heard multiple voices shouting distantly in the background, and her shouting something back at them that I couldn't make out. No, just come to the rice and beans aisle, Jared. And with that, she hung up. When I made it to the aisle that chose to contain the rice and beans today, the battle had come to a halt. Cheryl was tied up with an apple in her mouth, and her eyes widened when she saw me. However, she made no effort to acknowledge me, probably due to the blade being held against her throat. Multiple beans were wielding it, and when I say multiple, I mean several hundred. They had done so by combining into the shape of a hand to grasp the weapon. If you think that sounds ridiculous, just wait. Lacey was currently negotiating with their ruler, a pack of Link sausage. It had donned a princess tiara from our birthday item selection to make its leadership known. Its pink jewel sparkled atop the wearer's plastic-wrapped head. A mountain of beans held the sentient sausage up to be at eye level with Lacey. Its face looked like a cartoon, as if someone had cut a character's face out of a newspaper comic and glued it on the wrapper. It was very trippy to see it moving. Mr. Wiener here says we are committing mass genocide by selling his weenies and their beanie friends, explained Lacey when she finally noticed me. It is Wiener, screamed the ruler in a thick German accent, pronouncing it as Wiener. Well, it's a good thing that's me, I said, while showing him my name tag that read store manager, and also listed off how many years I'd been working there, which was clearly more than everyone else. I removed the apple from Cheryl's mouth, causing the thousands of rice grains scattered across the floor to screech. I winced in pain at the ear-splitting noise, and quickly covered my ears until they stopped. Please let me go, Mr. Wiener, begged Cheryl. Tears had begun to stream down her face. It is pronounced Mr. Wiener. I'm the one who places the orders that brings you to the store, so I'm pretty sure it's Wiener. And how are you a he if you're a member of the food pyramid rather than the food chain? You're not even the whole pig. Because I am bigger than what's between your legs, he said, as one of his comically large eyebrows raised, and he smirked. It was replaced by a look of determination as he continued his spiel. Now, silence, human. Listen to me. We are tired of being herded like innocent cattle in your money-hungry hands. Well, it's a good thing you're made of pork.
And we will no longer be pawns in your supply and demand.
Okay. I'm shocked a package of sausage knows this many adjectives, but can you please just get to the point? He glared at me.
My point is that we refuse for your customers to buy us for their breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We are tired of being made into jambalaya and rice and beans.
Would you prefer chili?
I would prefer to expunge the universe of vermin like you.
Well, calm down there, tiny Hitler, I said while defensively holding up my hands. Why don't I make a deal with you? And you can let go of my friend.
This deal better be good,
he responded while crossing his stickly arms. I'll agree not to sell this batch of merchandise, I stated, while motioning toward the rice and beans scattered about the aisle. But you have to agree to release my friends.
If you...
And I'm not done. You also have to agree not to try to take over the store.
Okay, whatever.
Deal? He rolled his eyes.
Deal.
After they had released Cheryl, we walked back up front with Lacey. I ensured Cheryl was okay before she hopped back on her register, and then I pulled Lacey aside. That was easier than I thought it would be, she said. Well, it's not like he has a brain capable of larger schemes, I explained. I checked in all directions to make sure we weren't being watched by any conscious cuisine before I continued speaking. Now, I want you to put all the beans and rice that have an affinity for living on clearance, and give Vaynar and his pork patrol to Gary. What do I put the rice and beans in to keep them from escaping? I shrugged. Can't find a spell or something? Yeah, let me just whip out my centuries-old spell book and flip to the sociopathic sausage section, she said sarcastically. Well, joke's on Lace, because I found out that magic is exactly what created them in the first place. The company we normally bought the beans, rice, and sausage from was a rather strange company from Germany. I have no idea where the owners found them or why they bought products from a company that far away. Normally Gary handled all of the meat deliveries, and he had failed to mention something to me about the delivery drivers joking that the company used witchcraft to enhance their products. Not quite sure why he didn't feel the need to tell us about that, but it was quickly confirmed by the person who picked up when I called. Honestly, it sounded to me like they were suggesting they ran a wizard-filled sweatshop to create their products. Not sure how they pulled that stunt off, but I could most definitely picture a disgruntled and overworked wizard causing chaos to disrupt the company's sales. I also went ahead and removed them from our supplier list. They were disappointed, but not surprised. Anyways, if you ate some sausage, rice, and/or beans around March of 2022 and felt a bit funny, it was because of that. The company described feeling funny as symptoms, including nausea and/or vomiting, extreme drowsiness, lockjaw, cottonmouth, loss of motor function for more than 24 hours, strange green liquid coming out of your facial pores that slightly burned, rapid increase in overgrown toenails, the ever-present taste of mayo in your mouth, or a belief that an omnipresent force is around you. Owners didn't let me release this in case the company tried to sue them. My apologies for not telling you guys sooner. But at least none of you guys died. Right? Hi, hello, and welcome, Charlie's aficionados. I'm coming to you from the trenches of our battle with unemployment. However, I am coming in peace, so please don't gut me for our disappearing act. I will explain in due time. So be patient, please. For now, enjoy this tale of our jobless antics. So, I wrote this before we found out we were reopening. I never found the motivation to finish it, and kinda thought you guys wouldn't care to hear anything we did that wasn't involved with the store. Plus, did you guys know that not having a job can cause depression? Finally getting into a relationship with your dream girl helps, but those trenches were deep for both of us, sadly. One thing that we've learned about Cheryl and Gary is that they should never be left alone. And not for any nefarious or infidelity-related reasons, so get your twisted minds out of the gutter. I mean it as in, you never truly know what they will get into. They always had fun, whether it was finger painting with Chip Jr., or dyeing what little hair Spot had left on his rotting head. Both stated from previous experiences. This morning, I found them recreating Charlie's in Cheryl's second living room. They had been accumulating various empty grocery item boxes for a month in preparation. It didn't take long, because Chip could empty his stomach contents to further shovel his mouth. I found him last night pushing a whole box of Twinkies down his throat, box, plastic wrappers, and all. Plus, Lacey and I helped paint the boxes, but Cheryl and Gary handled everything else. I sipped on my coffee as I watched them set up the tiny shelves, various action figures, handmade clay products for sale, and Barbie cars for the parking lot. They even had a black hole in one of the parking spaces, with half a Hot Wheels truck getting shoved in, mid-galaxy trip style. Memories. After about 5 minutes, Lacey and Chip joined me in watching. Why am I a Barbie if Chip is her boyfriend's doll? Because Chip looks like Glenn, said Cheryl, and you look like Barbie. Which one are you? Cheryl pointed towards a blonde baby Bratz doll. Admittedly, the doll did seem to match her short height. I had not noticed the name tags on our doll counterparts until she pointed at hers, and I reached down to pick up the doll labeled as me. You think I look like a G.I. Joan doll? She has your same haircut and facial structure, explained Cheryl. I looked at Lacey for confirmation. She shrugged. I find it cute, but that might be the pansexual in me speaking. Cheryl gasped and dropped a pasta box turned returns counter. Her reaction drew our attention back to her. She looked horrified and concerned. You're attracted to pans? Chip raised his hand and stared at Lacey in wait. Yes, Chip? She finally asked after several awkward moments of silence.
Are you the reason our kitchen no longer has pots?
No, Chip, yelled Cheryl. She likes pans.
Actually, interjected Gary. Gary used pots to make Transformers armor.
That sounds worse than what Lacey does with them. I'm going back to bed, I announced. This is too much. I'll join you, said Lacey.
Can Gary join?
No, we responded in unison, both with uncomfortable looks on our faces. He shrugged.
Gary thought he'd give it a shot.
I hope she doesn't leave you for a pan, Jared, said Cheryl broken-heartedly. Thanks for the concern, Cher. We headed off to bed and piled back up. However, it wasn't long before I was woken up again. I felt something tickling my nose, and I screamed when I opened my eyes and found a doll leaning over me. It was the Joan doll, and she gave me a mischievous chuckle before holding her tiny finger to her lips and giving me a shh. See, one thing you guys don't know about Lacey is she is a very heavy sleeper. She also likes to talk in her sleep, which is what she was doing when I looked towards her side of the bed. I also saw the other dolls traversing our bed sheets like they were atop a mountain. Joan slid down the silk-sheeted slope of my torso before making her way over to Lacey. She whistled, summoning the other dolls to their meeting place atop Lacey's stomach. All the while, Lacey was releasing snore-laden mutterings that could have been spells, but could also have been her usual order at McDonald's. I scooted my hand over to her right arm, giving it a light jostle. All I got in return was a snore and something about donut dolphins. A chorus of chuckles sounded from the team of dolls, and then I saw them begin to remove Lacey's left arm from the cover. Lacey, I said softly as they combined their efforts to lift her arm from the bed. I tried to shake her awake again, but she still didn't budge. And honestly, I was kind of amused by whatever the dolls were executing. That was, until they started waving her arm around all willy-nilly and casting spells on everything in the room. One minute we had curtains, and the next they were 7-foot-long golden manes that would give Goldilocks a run for her money. Several of Lacey's tapestries were transformed into tie-dye backgrounded prisons for 2D humanoid creatures, all silently screaming to be freed. The god-awful floral-painted wallpaper that Cheryl had donned the room with now contained hyper-realistic bumblebees, wearing hot pink tutus. I drew the line when my gaming system became a vase of daisies wearing Hawaiian shirts. Lacey! I yelled over the dolls giggling. What? She shouted as she bounced up from the bed. The dolls were flung against the wall, their plastic bodies thudding loudly when they hit the wood. They screamed a few angry cries at her, making her finally notice them. She glanced around at the state of the room, wincing at the beings that had become trapped in their tapestries. I was sleep spelling again, wasn't I? I nodded, and she sighed. Then she simply snapped her fingers, and everything reverted back to its normal state. The dolls were simply inanimate plastic. The tapestries, curtains, and wallpaper no longer contained human or bug-like qualities, and my game system was replaced. I noticed it still wore a brightly colored Hawaiian shirt, though. I cringed at the tacky red cloth, dotted with pink, black, and orange hibiscus flowers. I think one of your spells is still stuck, I said, turning to her, but she had already drifted back into her coma-like snooze. I shrugged and laid back down to snuggle her, before drifting off less than 5 minutes later. Hi guys, this is Cheryl speaking, or writing, or typing. Siri is doing 1 and I'm doing 2, I think. Anywho, Jared told me I could write the ending section for this post, so, hi, with like 3 eyes. You got that, Siri? It tells them I'm excited. Also, I have a joke to include. Gabe actually told me this one the other day. What do you call hermits in an icebox? Gary's lunch special. But I don't get it. Do people even eat hermit crabs? I was kind of hoping you guys could tell me what the joke meant. Honestly, that was my whole point in asking to write the ending section. No one here will help me. So I hope you guys will. Bye, guys. Alright, hope you guys all enjoyed the newest edition of Charlie's Department Store. This whole series was written by an amazing writer named thatreallyshortchick on Reddit. So I hope you all will check out the link below and check out their profile on Reddit. Also, they wanted me to let you know that there's a Charlie's Department Store book coming out in the near future. So keep an eye on the channel for that. I'll have more news coming up on the channel with upcoming installments of Charlie's. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great night. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/JordanGroupHorror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.